who would like to make a statement to the school committee? Being none, we'll move on. The chair's report, we have a section called for the good of the organization. If any school committee member has something that he or she would like to just quickly tell the school committee, something that he or she's been doing in the past month or so or whatever, this is the time to do that. Mrs. DeLuca.
I attended the joint boards meeting in Stowe, which does the state of the town, on February 27th, and I'm very happy to hear about the building.
Thank you. Jim?
I have met with all 4 candidates for the 3 school committee spots in Belmont, just to let them know that the ball is going to be in their court soon about what they're going to do, and I just encourage them to keep an open mind and be open to the new facts on the ground.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just a few things that I did with George Clement and I met with the PTA presidents, the presidents of the PTAs or PTO organizations in Lexington Public Schools, and George talked to them about the values and benefits of Minuteman High School. And some of the things that came out of that meeting were that he's been invited to attend the Clark. We talked about the need and the value of having contact with parents. So George, in the fall, will be invited to Clark Middle School back to school night to be able to have some material to talk about Minuteman. And others, we extend the same invitation to other schools, including the elementary schools, that we'd be happy to come and speak with them. George received plaudits for how his presentation, that he had a PowerPoint presentation which was shown behind him, but he didn't read from it, and they thought that the president of the group thought that was really not just to read it off the screen. So George gets plaudits for that as well as everything else he said. That's basically it. It was a very positive meeting and positive reception by those people at my George did an excellent job. Okay, student report, Jayla.
Hello, it's nice to see you all again. So, this month all the students and faculty got a chance to sign one of the beams that are going into the new school. There's a picture of Miss Sierra and Miss Bordeaux signing it. And I thought it was a really great integrated activity that the students got to take a part of. I almost didn't get to sign it because we were out on clinical that day, but we rescheduled and our shop got to do it. I thought it was really fun, and I can't wait to go back to the new building and see that beam somewhere. I think that it would be really great, like a landmark, something that I did while the school was building. I think a lot of people feel the same. There are some more pictures of it. DBC, I think that's the group. And on Sunday, our New Orleans trip, our New Orleans team went over to New Orleans. 15 students are on the trip, and they were all very excited. Lily, she's in the lower left corner, was talking all about it. It was like her life mission for every day to the departure. And what she told me about it was that they are going over to the 9th Ward to rebuild the houses that are still healing from the impact of Hurricane Katrina. The activities that they'll be doing after all the hard work is done is watching a documentary about servicing New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. And they're divided into teams. They'll be doing little presentations for what they'll be doing. So I'm interested to see how that goes. But they're hard at work, and they're really enjoying every minute of it. Yeah, I did. And now that's the plumbing group, the juniors and seniors. They are at Boston's Waterwork Museum. They had a lot of fun. My brother is in plumbing, and he liked the field trips they went on. He thought they were really integrated, and he liked working and seeing what he could do afterwards. So he's not in this rotation, but it's something that I could relate to. This was the last, Blessed Spirit that took place over the past weekend. I think that it was a very spectacular play. I love the plot, stuck to me in. I had one of my friends take these pictures, and she got so enveloped into the play that she only had a few pictures to give me. I thought it was really good. For those who haven't seen it, it was about a writer and his wife who call in this medium to do a seance for them so they could write more about a book, and the medium ends up calling the writer's wife, ex-wife, dead wife, down, and she haunts them throughout the play, which was very interesting. So
It was very well done. I saw it Saturday.
yeah, I loved it a lot. So I think we have another picture.
Yeah, one more.
So this was intermission, and something funny about this is because you can see Mr. Dillon right there. Yeah, in the mirror. So it's proof that he was there. But that was during intermission. That's Tyler and DJ, the stage manager and the stage hand. So, let's see. I think that's all that we have. That's it from the
I have something to add to the student report, if I might.
Absolutely.
Some of you have been on the school committee a while, know of and have heard of the Walter F. Markham Award. It's a very prestigious award that's given to one vocational student in the state once a year. It comes with a significant scholarship check, as well as recognition with the plaque and a rotating plaque that goes around different vocational schools from year to year. In my 11 years here, we've had one student who's been honored in such a way, and we were informed just yesterday that, again, a Minuteman student from Arlington has been selected as the Walter J. Markham Award winner for 2018, and I believe Mr. Adam Powell is with us this evening. So we'll be hearing more about that probably at graduation, is when we'll all be presenting the awards. And the check. Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations from the school committee. Thank you. The people to my left may not, you must be Skills USA, am I correct? I wonder what gave you away. Anyway, welcome to the school committee meeting, and we'll be hearing about you next on the agenda, about the overnight field trip for Mass Skills USA. Mr. Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're seeking approval for 2 overnight field trips. The first one is an overnight field trip for Skills USA Leadership Conference, leaving Minuteman April 26th and returning on April 28th. This conference is located in Marlborough and Upton, Massachusetts.
Do I hear a vote to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Spillane.
I just have to ask the question, is this in conformance with all of the policies?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
How many students are we sending?
47. We have 47 students and 5 adults attending right now.
Would any of the students who are here this evening have anything to say, or a word from the school committee? You're welcome if you do. Yes.
So I'm Nick Delore. I've attended Skills USA last year, and I went to Nationals with my friends Ben and Tyler. And I would just like to thank you guys for really pushing this program for us, and it really means a lot to almost everyone here. And I'd just like to say thank you on behalf of all of us. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We have a number of gold medal winners. Are you going to talk about that in any more detail?
I was going to let them do that.
Okay, good.
Malcolm, you want to do that?
I can do that, Chairman. You can have the floor since you're a student leader.
I may have the floor.
You could just say, we have a number of gold medal winners, I think.
Yeah. So I'm the chapter president of Skills USA. For
And your
Minuteman.
name is?
Taryn O'Connor.
Thank you. And what program are you in?
Culinary Arts.
And what town are you from?
Bolton.
Well,
And
Thank you.
your father's name?
David O'Connor. We have had multiple gold students. Yeah. Yes, we're doing very good. We would love to have so many more participants in skills, but what we have right now is outstanding, and we hope everyone does well. Thank you again.
Thank
I
you.
believe the actual number, my name is Malcolm Paradise, I'm the engineering instructor and one of the advisors along with Cliff Kierstead for the Skills USA team this year. We had 31 students compete at districts. We won 17 medals. I believe, I might even had a couple more, but we had 17 medals, of which I think 14 or 15 are going to states. They were silvers or golds. We had 2 or 3 bronze in there out of that group. And then we have an additional, I think, 20 plus students, because we have 47 going to states. So the other kids outside of the gold medals, which are skills related, which would be shop based, the leadership ones are all strand 4 and 5 type things that you get in there, but leadership, extemporaneous speech. I think we got
Job demo.
job demos. We got job interview. I think we've got a number of students competing in all these leadership categories as well. Well, probably almost 30 students, I think, in that category. Those categories. Somebody doing technical math. All these things that went directly to states. We have a number of career pathway students. I think we have 5 or 6 teams. There are 3-person teams competing in career pathways. And some are in business, some are in technology, some are in health. I think there's customer service. There's a bunch of different categories in there. And these are a representative group of both groups, the ones that are medal winners from states, from districts that are going to states to compete, to see if they get their gold in their area. And a bunch of them that are going to compete in the leadership portion as well. So it's a good showing for our school. Again, as Taryn mentioned, we'd love to have more kids participate. But we've had tremendous support in leadership areas for groups that don't have skills competitions at this competition. They don't have a technical skill like environmental biotech. And we have a number of students. I think we have almost like 12 or 15 students coming out of biotech alone that are going to do leadership competitions next week, in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Assuming you approve.
Yeah, right. Anyone else?
Yeah. Hi, my name's Jordan Mills. I'm in health assisting and I'm a junior here at Minuteman. I'm the vice president of our chapter. I'd just like to thank you guys for what you guys have done in the past and supporting Skills USA in the ways that you have. I probably would not be able to speak in front of you today if it weren't for Skills. It has done a lot for all of us here and we really appreciate your support.
You're very welcome. Anybody else? Anybody? Eager to get your hand up? Okay. From the people who have spoken, I get the feeling that that the experience has been very valuable for you as individuals, and just also let you know that we feel a great sense of pride in how you represent the school and the Minuteman community. So I'm glad that you personally have benefited from it, but the school as a whole has also, as you with your representation. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yes.
I'd like to thank you for wearing the red coat.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving the overnight field trip? Is opposed? Abstained? It's unanimous. So thank you all very much, and best wishes when we go to states.
Well done.
I hope you don't mind if they leave so they can go do their homework.
No.
Because they all want to go home and do their homework.
Sure.
I'm sure that I want to do the most tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Paradise.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. Mr. Kirsten, we've been here, but he's just home right now. Doing his project work on the team out in New Orleans.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that live.
We'll get you guys up there.
Yeah, I can't wait.
So we'll have to get what we need in 2 weeks.
See you tomorrow, Mr. Marshall.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, Jack, the second item about environmental technology.
Second approval for an overnight field trip is for our environmental technology program, leaving Mendon on May 8th and returning on May 11th, and this trip will take place on Cape Cod.
Do we hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
This is the same trip they've gone on for many years, is that
Yes.
correct? Thank you.
And how many, it passes the packet, how many are going this year, Ted?
Offhand,
Just roughly.
I'm not sure, so I have to get back to you.
No, that's all right, okay.
22 students.
22, very good, thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor? All opposed? None abstained, 8-0. And
Thank you.
moving on. Oh, you're welcome, Jack. I'd like to welcome Cheryl Stevens-Burke here tonight, and Kevin, perhaps you'd like to introduce it further, but thank you. It's good to see a familiar face back again. We look forward to hearing about our report, your report about us.
Certainly, this evening, we have our annual report on the audit, review of the fiscal year 17 financial statements, and also was included in your packet, and also included in your packet was a governance letter, formerly known as a management letter. It was not bound, but stapled with the Heath Redican. To present this evening's report, once again, she has for a number of years, is Cheryl Stevens-Burke. She is a partner with Nancy Heath.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here tonight to talk about the results of your fiscal year 2017 audit. I want to also say thank you to Kevin and the folks in the business office for their assistance during the audit. We appreciate it very much. I understand you all have a copy of the final down financial statements, and I'm going to walk through a few of the highlights of that, and then talk a little bit about the governance letter that Kevin was mentioning. So if you open the audited financial statements to the independent auditor's report, that's right beyond the table of contents. I'm going to start there. The independent auditor's report is the couple of pages in this report that relates to the audit firm itself. Everything else is all of your information, your financial information that is derived from your accounting records. If you look in the middle of the page of the independent auditor's report, you see that it describes what management's responsibility for the financial statements is, and that is to prepare and fairly present the financial statements in accordance with the accounting standards. And that also includes designing, implementing, and maintaining an effective system of internal control. The last paragraph on the first page of the independent auditor's report talks about the auditor's responsibility, and that is to provide an opinion on your financial statements based on the audit. Some of the things that we do as part of the audit process is we come into the audit, we assess risk, we run a test to determine if we can give you a clean opinion on the audited financial statements. The second page, middle of the page, is the opinion paragraph. In 2017, this is a clean or unmodified audit opinion. It says that we believe the financial statements are materially fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It's important to note that the opinion that's appearing here is not just on the district itself as of fiscal 2017, but the financial statements also include the numbers related to Minuteman's contributory retirement system, and that's as of December 31st, 2016. Following the independent auditor's report on pages 3 through 9 is the management's discussion and analysis section, and that's a required part of the audited financial statements. It's not audited itself, but it does give an overview of the financial statements, and it talks about some of the highlights of the financial statements. So the numbers pages of the financial statements begin on page 10 with the statement of net position, and there are a couple of different presentations of financial information in governmental financial statements, a couple of different ways that it's accounted for and presented. So the first page of numbers is on page 10 with the statement of net position. You'll see that there's one column titled governmental activities. This includes all of your governmental funds, your general fund, your stabilization fund, capital projects, revolving and grant funds, all combined into one column, and that's the requirements of the financial reporting standard. This particular page in the financial statements, being the first one, is a little bit alarming in the last few years, and I say that because if you look at the bottom of the page, the net position represents equity, and it's in a negative $1,583,332. It's important to note that to readers of the financial statements that this page and the one that follows it is using a long-term perspective of accounting. It's using an accrual basis, and what it's doing is it's putting all long-term assets and liabilities on the books. In recent years, there's been several new accounting standards that have been driving this number down, this net position into the negative. And it's not because these liabilities have not existed, it's just that these standards are now requiring them to be reported on this page in the financial statements. So I'm referring to down towards the bottom of the page in the non-current section, 2 lines, the net pension liability of $2,752,000, and that represents the unfunded liability in your retirement system, which is actually a very good number compared to most governmental financial statements that you would look at. Your retirement system is pretty well funded compared to most. And then following that line is the net OPEB obligation, other post-employment benefits. And what this relates to is the benefits that are determined to be liable to retirees for participation in your health insurance program. And that's $13,928,856. So that's really the primary driver, making your net position into a negative at the end of the year. It's all important to note that there's a new governmental accounting standard that is going to be effective with fiscal 2018. So that $13,928,856 that you see is only a piece of the liability that's out there. The new accounting standard effective for 2018 is going to make that number a much bigger number. It's going to put the full amount of the liability here, so further making this into the red. But again, most governmental financial statements that you will look at, their net position is in a negative because of this. And it's nothing new. This page in the financial statements is primarily used by the bond rating agencies. Also important to point out that these liabilities that are on this presentation are not required to be funded or budgeted for. It's really just to get everything that's possibly out there for long-term assets and liabilities on this page of the financial statements. So page 11 is the statement of activities, and this is again using that long-term basis of accounting, accrual basis. So what you're going to see in this presentation is expenses such as depreciation expense, something that you don't budget for. That replaces the capital outlay expenses that you are budgeting for. So it's a different method of accounting. If you look at the third line up from the bottom, the change in that position of negative $42,488, that is the results of the fiscal 2017 on this basis of accounting. The next page, page 12. So that was the first set of financial statements using a long-term perspective. Page 12 has the balance sheet. This is a short-term perspective. Uses the fund basis of accounting, And it's really a current resources focus. There's no long-term assets such as capital assets on there, or long-term liabilities such as bonds payable, compensated absences, the net OPEB obligation, the net pension liability. The reporting requirements are that you have to show what is called a major fund in this presentation. So you see the multiple columns. The general fund column, it's important to note, also includes your stabilization funds. And then to the right, you see the capital projects fund, and that qualifies as a major fund. Major funds have to be standalone in this presentation. And then further to the right, and everything else falls into the non-major governmental funds column. Those are your grants and revolving funds. A key tool for management is to look at the fund balance section. If you see down the fund balance section, you have 4 categories of fund balance in the general fund: restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. The committed fund balance includes your stabilization fund, your OPEB, which is about $100,000 at year end, and then your building stabilization fund. The assigned number of $4,338,903 includes monies that you had budgeted for the subsequent fiscal year, so $3.4 million from tuition and $695,000 for operations. So that's set aside from the fund balance as of this point in time to be used against the subsequent year's budget. And then the remaining fund balance is the unassigned fund balance. That's the 8112,100. And this is sometimes commonly referred to in Massachusetts school districts as E&D. It's really the E&D starting point for the calculation. So you start there, and then if there are any funds outside of the general fund that are in a deficit, or any deficit balances within the general fund, perhaps in the holding accounts, those get deducted from the balance. There's a maximum percentage of E&D that is allowed, and that's 5% of the subsequent year's budget. As of June 30, 2017, you are at 4%. That's the same as what you were in the prior year. In the capital projects fund, and I'm still in the fund balance section, you'll see that the unassigned fund balance is a negative $4,160,007. It's important to note that on a temporary basis, as of this point in time, that's being funded by a bond anticipation note, and then when you go to bond, that will be paid off and this deficit will be cleared. Further to the right in the non-major governmental funds column, you'll see that you have restricted fund balance, $2,225,934, and then you have a negative balance, $86,145. That's required to be shown separately. That represents individual funds as of this point in time that are in a deficit. We've reviewed those funds, individual funds that were in a deficit at that time. And it's important to note that they mostly relate to fiscal 2017 grants that get their revenues on a reimbursement basis. So basically, subsequent to year ends, they would get reimbursement and have those cleared for the most part. Next page is a reconciliation between the two methods of accounting. And then on page 14, you have your governmental funds income statement. You see about a third of the way up from the bottom of the page, the excess deficiency of revenues in each fund. Again, major funds, general fund, including stabilization, capital projects, and non-major governmental funds. Page 15 is also a reconciliation, and then another key page for users of the financial statements is on page 16, where we have the general fund budget versus actual page. On the far right, you have a variance column, which compares the final budget numbers to the actual numbers on a budgetary basis. And the budgetary basis of accounting is similar to the financial statements that we were just looking at, but there are some slight differences. So if you look at the bottom of the page on the far right, we have a positive 664 with the budget. Primarily a result of underspent appropriations, the number right above that, 565,783. On page 17, fiduciary funds. Fiduciary funds are presented separately from governmental funds and governmental financial statements. You have 3 types of fiduciary funds. Your retirement trust fund, and then the private purpose trust funds, those represent your scholarship funds, and then agency funds, those reflect the balances of student activity fund accounts at June 30, 2017. Page 18 is the income statement for fiduciary funds for the retirement fund and for scholarship trust fund. And then following page 18, you begin with the notes to the financial statement. A good portion of the notes to the financial statements are because of those new accounting standards that were implemented in recent years. And that pension liability, and that's what they call GASB 68, and then the net OPEB obligation, which was GASB 45, soon to be GASB 75, in 2018. So a good portion of these are really consuming the footnote disclosure of governmental financial statements. Are we able to ask questions about page 22, or is that part of this section? What's the financial statement footnotes?
I asked about this earlier, and he said I would bring it up. So, the district policy permit employees to obtain unused vacation benefits. He said he was gonna give me some figures on that, so we would understand what that is.
Oh, sure. This is part of the summary of significant accounting policies, this footnote disclosure. And actually, if you flip back to page 10, that's where the compensated absence liability is reflected on page 10. In the liability section, so you can see the compensated absence, yes, 217,069 right there. So that is a liability that exists on the financial statements using this method of accounting. On the fund basis of accounting, you pay those benefits as they are incurred, so it's kind of a pay-as-you-go, so it's a different presentation.
Okay, so basically, what I'd eventually like to see is what makes up this number?
Oh, sure, yeah, the detailed, we certainly have that. Part of that information is provided by the business office and we'll audit it for inclusion in the financial statement, so yeah, that's available.
Anyone else? At this point?
Just have a question about the pension liability. At some point, that is expected to be fully funded by state statute, isn't it? I mean, what is that date now? It was 2014 at one point, and then we had the financial crisis, and they pushed it out.
Your pension liability of $2.7 million, I think. I'm not sure that there's any law that requires it to be funded. You're much more funded than any pension system, pension or retirement system that I've been seeing. Most of them in this area are like 58, 60%, 62% funded. So you're at about, I think, 82% funded. You're much higher than most.
Oh, Jim, sorry.
The answer to your question, I think, is 2040.
2040?
I think that's when the state laws.
And as far as you mentioned that the OPEB liability was going to be much greater. What is not currently included that they're going to include in 2018?
Sure. Maybe I didn't explain that in detail. GASB 45 was effective a few years ago, and what that did is you would hire an actuary to calculate what the liability is. The accounting standard requirement was basically to recognize the liability and the expense incrementally, typically over 30 years. So that's only a piece of the total liability under that accounting method. What the new standard is saying is that you'll need to put the entire amount on there. That makes more sense than, you know.
So just to follow up there, so we've got 13 million on there now, and that's just a portion of it?
It's a portion of it, correct.
And so it's about 1/30 of it?
No, it's been over a few, and there are some differences. That's kind of a very simplified explanation for it. So I think it's going to be, about 19 or 20 million when you implement GASB 75.
But the difference between 2016 and 2017, those numbers were under the same GASB interpretation. So the growth of, I 1.3 million.
Yeah.
Is that a fair estimate of what we're currently doing?
If you look at the change, yes, the change in the OPEB obligation was on page 15. It's 1,329,384, so that's from 16 to 17.
Right. Under the same principle, so it gives us a
Right.
sense of
Yep, that's
how
fine.
much we're sort of underfunding in a current
That's the
sense.
incremental change for that year.
Anyone else?
Kevin had also mentioned that there is a governance letter this year. The governance letter is required communication from the auditor to those charged with governance. We have been issuing these in the last few years. In lieu of a separate management letter, there are recommendations for fiscal 2017 that are included in the governance letter, and those are beginning on page 5. So there are 2 recommendations. The first one is improve control over the treasury function. The issue was that cash was not being timely reconciled to the general ledger during the year. And there is a plan corrective action listed at the bottom of the page. And the second recommendation is on page 6, and that is to conduct annual audits, and audit is kind of a loosely used term in this particular case, of student activity funds in accordance with DESI's guidelines. The requirements there are that your student activity funds need to be audited by an external independent auditor every 3 years, and on the off years, you need to have that done internally. And there are a couple of different ways to have that performed. You can designate somebody to do that internally, or you can hire a consulting firm to do it as well. So that's what did not occur. You're on one of your off years in fiscal 2017. And there's an audit guide or manual that DESI puts out to do that.
Did you, other than the fact that it was not done, did you detect any malfeasance or something? Use that term. Pardon?
Abnormalities.
Abnormalities.
Malfeasance is a
unusual transactions.
We don't do a full audit of them, but we do, they are part of the audit process. It's actually the work that, that's done on this special engagement is very in-depth, but with respect to issues noted, we did not note any problems or issues with it.
It was more processed.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
Jim?
Yeah, just in that, that it may be good for us to sort of remember that when we come to our meeting, and just sort of make sure that the chair of the finance subcommittee has that on the checklist, and sort of make sure if it is an off a year, that it gets, you know, that they're working with Kevin to make sure that it gets done. And then a question on the other one. Can you remind me what the magnitude of the, how much cash did you think was not on time and reconciled? And are we talking about hundreds of dollars or?
It's not really a dollar amount, it's cash in total. You have or you utilize what is called a pool cash concept, so you have multiple bank accounts that reside mostly in your general fund. And so when you're looking at the financial statements and you see cash listed for each fund, it's really that fund's piece of the total pool cash. So when we're talking about reconciled cash, we're talking about all of the bank accounts reconciled to all of the funds balances of cash in total.
Yes, Jeff?
Could you explain corrected misstatements and uncorrected misstatements?
Certainly.
I don't recall seeing these before, so it looks new to me.
Yeah, it's possible that with your governance letter in past years that they may not have been included. A corrected misstatement is basically an audit adjustment. It's something that needed to be done to your numbers, which was the starting point for the audit, to get to the numbers and the final numbers in the audited financial statements. If they're not material in nature, they don't need to be reported with the governance letter. Uncorrected misstatements are what gets accumulated throughout the audit process. So for example, if you're reconciling cash and it's off $100 from the general ledger, I'm using some round, small numbers, you would log that in, and at the conclusion of the audit, you would evaluate individually and collectively those uncorrected misstatements and make a determination if anything needs to actually get recorded to the financial statements, if it's material to your financial statements. So that's what uncorrected misstatements are.
And are the number or size of these misstatements unusual, or is this fairly common?
I would say not unusual.
Not.
Not unusual. And you really need to have a pretty good understanding of accounting and auditing to understand what they mean.
Exactly. My last question is there, seems like the answer is no, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Is there anything in these statements that you found that has not been discussed that the school committee should be concerned about?
There's nothing that has not been reported to the school committee. When we conduct an audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, those are our rules, not the financial statement rules. There are certain specific issues that rise to the level of either a material weakness or significant deficiency, and that means if we're following our rules, we would have to be reporting those to you. So everything that's been identified as a significant deficiency, and that's all you had in these recommendations has been reported.
Jim?
On the same page 3, the uncorrected and corrected misstatements. The first sentence there starts off as an added service to the district. We assisted in the compiling. Is this a one-time service you provided, or is this a service you have provided in previous years as well?
This is a service that is part of the audit process. The starting point for for preparing governmental financial statements is typically the fund basis statements. That was the second set. It's for which you prepare your books, your general ledgers on that short-term basis. There's a conversion process to add on long-term assets and liabilities, and that information is derived from information that is provided by your district and audited by us. So that's the conversion process that we're talking about. You don't keep your books on that long-term method of accounting. So it's really getting it to be presented in the financial statements that way.
Okay, so you weren't, when you walked in, you didn't think that this would have been done, but you were
Correct.
prepared.
Yeah, I would say 99.9% of governmental financial statements, the conversion process takes place as part of the audit process.
And I just want to sort of share with the rest of the school committee that that our last finance subcommittee meeting, I'm saying this because Carrie is not here, and she asked that we report out that we at that meeting saw a previous copy of the draft that was not this, and had some conversation about that then. That it may be that we want to revisit sort of this topic at our May 1st meeting, just as a go into some more questions. But just to have some more conversations, but it's not necessary to have it here.
We will, we'll have this on the May 1st.
Okay, great.
Yeah, anything, continuing?
No, I'm not upset.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, I read somewhere in the report that you had talked to Kevin about these deficiencies, and did I see corrective action? You said you're going to be doing things, and you agreed that they made, I'll use the word, made sense, and you would implement them, they would be implemented. Kevin, yeah. Either way.
Yes, through the course of the audit, we identified these areas and knew that we were lagging on some of these in fiscal 17, and we've addressed them. Our cash reconciliation is complete through January, and we expect to have it complete through February. That is this month. We've implemented a spreadsheet that captures going from bank balances all the way across to the general ledger balances to show the reconciliation. That's being prepared monthly for my review. I'll be sharing it with the Finance Subcommittee on May 1st. The second piece of it is the student activity account internal audit. As Cheryl mentioned, it's on a 3-year cycle, with 1 year being the auditor's period, 2 years the responsibility of the district. For fiscal 18, we are on the year that the outside audit firm does it, so it will not be a concern in fiscal 18 audit. But moving forward, I do know that MASBO, Mass Association of School Business Officials, provides this internal audit service for less than $2,000. So that may be a way that we can do that, so we can have an independent outside consultant come in and do what would be considered the internal audit. And we just implement that, as you talked about, kind of knowing that on the cycle. We'll just engage MASBO to do that. So I'm confident that these areas have an address.
Good, yeah. Anything else for any question or comment?
Out of curiosity, what is the, I know I saw it in here, but how much is in these student activity funds? What is the?
That would be found on page 17. It's about 55,000 as of June 30th, science team related to the student activity funds.
Okay.
Yes.
In the final time, I just thank you, I mean, just a thanks to everyone involved in the preparation, both from the staff and outside team. This is a lot of work, and I appreciate it.
Kevin.
Thank you, Jim. If I could just recognize Michelle Shepard, our Assistant Business Manager.
Oh, I couldn't see her behind you.
Behind us here, she is the lead coordinator with the audit firm, following up and providing a number of these schedules. So a lot of her hard work is reflected on this. I want to thank her publicly as well.
Jeff.
On a similar line to the previous comment, I just want to thank Cheryl again. And I know that the confidence I have in our finances have gone way up since we have started working with Cheryl and Melanson and Heath. And that has not changed this year. As I remember way back.
And also, I might add the collaboration that occurs between Kevin and Kevin's office and Cheryl. It seems to be apparent to me in what is said and what is in writing. So I value that too. But thank you very much. So thank you very much. On we go.
Do we need to take a formal vote?
Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
we do.
Yes. Do I hear a
I move that we
vote
accept the audit?
to accept the audit? Second report. Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, 8-0. Thank you. Thank you again, Cheryl.
Thank you,
very
Cheryl.
much. Superintendent's report, Dr. McCullough.
Yes, I want to introduce one of our stellar science teachers.
Somebody else here? It's just
No, it's you, Eric, it's you. We're going to leave our comedy show aside for a moment and talk about the academy model, and Eric's going to give you an update on curriculum mapping, which you'll explain what curriculum mapping is.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Eric Marshall. I'm the science teacher in the Engineering and Construction Trades Academy. And that's how I'll introduce myself from now on. I'm here to give you an update on what the Academy team has been doing these, well, I guess since we got back from Nashville 2 years ago. The curriculum mapping was the first thing we started when we got back. The idea of the map is really just to show everyone where you're going. And that's what we wanted to do, is to tell everyone on the staff where each one of us was going with our curriculum, what we were teaching, and when we were teaching it. The idea is that we want to be able to let everybody know where we can start to work together on things. I do a good deal of integration, and most of it happens with a hallway ambush, where you just ambush someone in the hallway and say, hey, do you teach the quadratic, or do you teach the Hoover Dam? With this curriculum map, I can just quickly scan a couple of keywords to find who's teaching what, when they're teaching what, and it's really letting us have these opportunities. It's not replacing our hallway ambushes, but it's giving us a great starting point, so that now I know exactly who I need to talk to, and it's letting us link things together in a way that we really weren't able to do before. The tool that we're using is called Rubicon Atlas, and we've trained the staff in it, and it's extremely user-friendly. It's been a very simple tool for everyone to learn, and everyone to use. So we've been very happy with that. Okay. The other big thing that we've accomplished is the common planning time. These early dismissal Wednesdays have just been a home run for the staff. I mentioned hallway ambushes. We can now actually have sit down and have a conversation about integration, about students, about all kinds of stuff that we're trying to get done. On top of just having time to work with our departments and work with our colleagues, we've also been putting on a lot of workshops. These curriculum maps, we started them a long time ago, but they were in a very disorganized way. We want everybody to be answering the same questions. So when we talk about a learning strategy, there could be a lot of opinions on what exactly that meant. So we had to really sit down amongst the curriculum mapping group and then explain to the staff, what do we mean by these learning strategies? I want to know if you're doing a Socratic method, or if you've got awesome worksheets, or if it's a video that maybe I could also use. All of our presentations and our notes with this kind of stuff, we keep in a OneNote. So we're using Office 365 to share all this stuff out, so the resources are available to everybody to check on later on as they need to. We also did a professional development needs survey. Dr. McQuillan set that up, and we were looking at all of the initiatives that we're doing between curriculum mapping, ALICE training, technology, department time, and we really wanted to try to focus on some areas like the integration project. The results came back and said, well, we still do need time for curriculum mapping, we still want time for departments, we still want time for technology. So we, instead of going as quickly as we could with these integration projects, we had to scale back a little bit and still allow time for everything else. But we're still going in a pretty good clip, I think. This document, slide, flowchart, this is really the keystone for our whole Academy project. When we got back from Nashville 2 years ago, they advised us not to go too fast, and those 2 years have gone pretty quickly, but this is really the map of what the future Minuteman is going to look like. Our engineering, construction, and trades, how we've split up all of our shops, and there's a companion document for where all of the academic teachers have aligned themselves. So all of our academic teachers have aligned themselves somewhere in these academies, somewhere in these pathways, and it's real. So we're working with our pathways, we're working in an academy, we've got these collaboration projects that we're all really starting to get to know each other's curriculum by working on. And I'll explain those integration projects now. And what I want to point out before I explain each one is that there's 5 pathways, and each one of these projects is very different. And it's different because we weren't given the exact rubric. So we weren't told exactly how to solve this make an integration project problem. We were just kind of left to this idea of find a big project to work together. And because of that, we got some very genuine responses for it, very genuine solutions that are kind of true to the character of some of these groups. The Digital Arts and Design Pathway. What they're trying to do, what they're going to do, they're going to teach all of their students how to make videos, do video editing, create interactive websites. That tool that they're going to have for the rest of their life, really, they're then going to be able to apply to academics. And they say things like a visual vocabulary video, a song about the quadratic equation or order of operations in math, vocabulary in foreign language. So having this one tool can then be applied in academics any number of ways. And it's not just a student sitting there with his computer doing a video. That's more a problem than a solution. It's a collaborative effort where many students have to work together to make these things. They're creating brand new content, they're being creative, and it's going to be exciting to work with these kids. I'm a member of this Trades and Transportation Pathway, and what we started out doing was some brainstorming, and I'll show you what that looked like. It was just a web tool I used called Padlet, where everybody just started posting what do they do in their curriculum that has to do with water. That was our basic idea, our general idea. We talked about flow rates in rivers, Cape Town running out of water, 11th grade units on environmental, water's use on civilization, and what we ended up doing is we're starting to narrow that down to 3 main projects that we've divided ourselves in. We're going to be generating electricity with runoff water from gutters. We're looking at the water cycle from ground to rain back to faucet, and we are looking at the cycle of a water bottled waters. And we're going to be unveiling that by just using students to work into all these projects throughout the year academically. The engineering production pathway, their goal, and it's a little bit different, they really want the students to run the whole thing. So what they want is to set up students into teams so that they will then use their senior project or use other projects throughout the year and pull in their own integrated academic content. So what that's going to look like, they're still working out. The health, hospitality, and human services pathway, they got off to a great start. They quickly got a consensus around heart-healthy living for their pathway project. And they've been doing a lot of things like health expos. They've been raising money for the Red Cross, the Wear Red Day for heart awareness. And they've been very visible, doing a great job getting started. Agriculture, environmental, and life sciences pathway, they're doing composting. So they're looking at the chemistry, how it fits in environmentally, accelerated biotech. So there's a lot of project ideas, there's a lot of things that they can build around composting that they're working on. And then moving on, I was part of the group that did the School Reform Initiative, SRI, back in the fall. And there was a lot of value to it. The pathways that got off to the best start, they have a large chunk of their leadership team that went to this SRI pathway. They had the tools to make this consensus. They weren't shy about getting it, and they're doing great. Some of the ones that are not off to a great start didn't get that same toolkit of consensus building. We're going to continue to look at options for student data warehouse. This has a lot to do with looking at every vocational standards that they have to check off in ways that we can better absorb that data. And then Rubicon Atlas, it has to be an ongoing project. There's always going to be new keywords that we're going to add. Curriculum is never stagnant, so we're always going to update it. But when people say that their curriculum app is done, we want to be able to tell them, okay, then you've done check, 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 and check, to make sure that they know exactly that they're up to the standards that we feel they should be at. So that's what we're moving forwards to for next year. Finally, I just wanted to say thank you to Katie Bouchard, who prepared these slides. She is at home with a new baby. I agreed to do this presentation on the condition that she includes a picture of puppies and babies. So I'll close with a puppies and babies. Thank you, and can I take any questions, or? Yes, Dave.
So I have two questions. The first question is, can we get a copy of the slides? Because I would like to have those.
I thought they were.
Now, I want an electronic copy. I can barely read them with the packet. Okay. The second question is, in what concrete way do you believe that the layout of the new building is going to assist you in what you're trying to do here?
So I'd give you a concrete way until we have a concrete on the building. But the way
Steel now, but we're getting to the concrete.
but we're looking at a lot of proximity with these things, being able to float from area to area seamlessly. I'm going to be down in the Construction Trades Academy. I'm going to be down with the plumbers. So earlier this week, I was doing friction and brake pads, and I had the maintenance guy bring up a model of the brakes, wheel it into my room. I used it for 20 minutes, and I'm going to ask him to wheel it all the way back down 3 in the elevator again. Being right next door, it's a constant field trip. I'm constantly able to bring in some of the really applied science that I want these kids to understand. When we talk about specific heat of water, we can walk down and take a look at all the heat that's being absorbed by an automotive engine.
So you believe that the proximity will allow it practical for you to do things that you could not have done practically without that proximity?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Alice?
You said curriculum is never stagnant, but I have definitely seen it be stagnant. So I'm very excited to see what you're doing here, and that it's not stagnant here. It never has been here, and I just am glad to see Minuteman continue to be active. Thank you.
Anyone else? Jim?
So what I've learned from this is that the academic piece is being pushed out into the pathways. Is that right?
Yes, the academic teachers have all either chosen a pathway or they've been placed based on the.
And then just how far is that process going? Is there still a core central academic portion, or has everything been pushed out onto the pathways?
We've met, I think the Academy, the integration project is designed to kind of really meld that together, because this is the responsibility of everyone, regardless of if you've got an academic hat or a vocational hat. So in these projects, we've sat down, we've been given this common planning time on, I think, 4 occasions so far, and we're meeting again tomorrow, where we're making this project happen, again, regardless of if you're academic or vocational. So we just have this mesh of input that's trying to get a job done.
Maybe a different way to take a look at it is that we go through clubs and through sports. Those are places where students from different pathways can work on together. I had sort of assumed that the academic classroom was going to be that way too, but is that not the case now?
Are you asking how well the academies are integrated into the classroom? In terms of scheduling it, so that I have almost exclusively construction trades, engineering construction trades academy students in my pathway, so I can do that work specifically with them. The schedule has not really played that out, but I think that that Keystone document I think it's just this year that it's been in circulation. The goal is going to be for me to see the majority of, I'll never be able to see 100% of those engineering construction trades academy because of the size of the school, but that isn't going to stop me from being able to take an applied physics class and building a water wheel generator, even if they're in the life sciences academy. It's still a beneficial component.
And so, I guess some of the things with execution of this and integrating the different academies to cross-correlate, what are you using or what are you guys considering as far as technology to stitch it all together?
The main way that we're doing it is that curriculum mapping software, so that we'll be able to say, and again, one of the things that can't stagnate is these keywords, the terminology, because at the beginning of the year, if you typed in water into my curriculum maps, you would have seen maybe 2 or 3 solid references in there. Now there's 40. And so, and when I type it in, and environmental has, I'm sure, at least 20, and I can use that to correlate with what environmentalists do.
So I guess the challenge then is that's great for the facilitators, the teachers and stuff like that, but how do we get the kids, once they're in the curriculum, to augment and take these projects that they're working on and stitch it back into the curriculum to feed that cycle?
We're really hoping that when I'm teaching a generator, how a generator works, social studies is teaching the Hoover Dam, the electricians are taking a tour of the Lowell power plant, that stitching together, it's just going to look like 3 light bulbs going off in 3 different classrooms at the same time.
Yeah, so again, it's a leading question, because you guys have the Office 360
Yep.
packages. There's a teaming tool.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies, including Microsoft, don't technically use it. But there are elements for teaching that are built into Teams to allow students to team all the time. So if they see a water wheel that they are working on or on a field trip, they can then attach that and tag from a social media perspective within their collaborative teams. And then people go, oh, the grist mill, that's a water wheel.
Yeah.
That's in Sudbury. Oh, that's a geolocation. And you start to get people to start to collaborate, and then the teachers can say, you know what, we really ought to talk not about the Hoover Dam. We should really talk about the Sudbury grist mill, because it's local, we can do a field trip there. And that augments how we actually take relevant proximity data and turn it into stuff that kids are jazzed about because they interact with it. But that technology is blooming. But if we don't think about it and think of how we're going to stitch it into the new building and use it ahead of time, we're not going to be there always be behind the curve. So I encourage you to use the full suite that's available, but tie it into the tool. And I believe the Rubrics tool has hooks, APIs that hook into that. So
yeah, I don't know if we have the API, but that's a really good point about being able to go out and tag these things, and not just social media. A lot of the other online tools that I have, they can do that kind of thing, like that little tag. Teams is a little bit new. We haven't really delved into how we're going to apply Teams into the classroom. We were using Classroom, and they discontinued that.
And then part of that reason is next year is when we complete our one-to-one. We can't assume all kids have the technology, so we're providing it to them. And after next fiscal year, or this coming school year, 100% of the kids will all have their own laptop provided by the district. And then we can kind of explore some of the other areas, pathway by pathway. Some of those tools wouldn't be appropriate for some of the pathways. Some would be very appropriate.
Could you review a bit, I may have lost it in the shuffle, review how those particular pathways were selected, how they came done? I somehow missed that.
The staff basically selected it. Those,
We sent out a survey too, a couple of years ago, a few years back.
in the process of the academy development team, the work, it was clear after a little while that 2 academies were still too big. So there was an effort and a question, a critical question was, how can we make these academies more intimate, for lack of a better word? And so the idea was to look at just the overall enrollment in each academy and try to come up with an organizational structure that provided academics in each pathway, but were smaller, kind of more connected pathways, so the integration could go deeper and broader. We could get more done and engage more people.
So a way of
That's how
looking at, I'm sorry, a way of looking at it is like the subgroups of the academies?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep. And one of the things the kids have said over the years when we engage them in looking at all this is they don't want to be isolated one from another. They don't want 5 schools in one. They don't want 2 schools in one. So one of the things that we're gonna have the opportunity to do in the new building, I think, in terms of scheduling, is to get more creative and flexible with scheduling, so that we can do, more intentional cross-pollination, if you will, of the academies and the pathways. The kids don't want to be isolated, they want to be one school. And it's a common thread to a lot of things they ask us to consider. And I think staff feels that way too.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Anyone else? Question for Eric or comment? Thank you, Eric, very, very much. And it's really wonderful to see this kind of work going on. We appreciate it and encourage it and support it.
We may all want to go to California next year, though, to see High Tech High. I'm surprised you didn't plant that seed.
And do you have any
I do.
An additional update on other goals?
I have 3 updates. The first one is to give, the first 2 are legislative in nature. One of my goals has been to work with the legislators more. Just to give you an update, Senator Friedman put an amendment into the capital bond bill for Minuteman for $1.4 million to support the completion of a photovoltaic overlay system in our new building. And now that particular amendment is now in conference committee, and there are 8 members of the conference committee. I'll just read their names quickly. I can, Representative Pat Haddad, Jeff Sanchez, Representative David Vieira, Chair Karen Spilka, she's the incoming Senate President.
She thinks.
We all hope. John Keenan, Don Humison, who I know very well from the western part of the state. And I sent letters out to them today in support of that bill. And this is just what I wrote in it so you can see.
This is for the funding piece, because we already have the authorization, right? But this is separate from what.
This is an amendment to the Senate bond bill. It was not presented in any House bill. So there's a conference committee made up now of 8 legislators, and those 8 have the responsibility to reconcile the differences in the House bond bill and the Senate bond bill. So it still has life. I met with Senator Friedman and Jay Kaufman last Thursday at the State House, and they're moving this forward. And so I just wanted you to know where it was at the moment. It's not a done deal. It's not, so we still have to kind of keep on it, but it's alive. The second thing is our enabling legislation, which is now been presented to the legislature by Jay Kaufman, and this is a copy of the House bill. I think I sent it around.
Yeah.
We sent it to our entire legislative team, including Watertown and some other non-member towns. So this is going to be presented as its own act, and it will also be attached to the House budget bill and the Senate budget bill. They're going at it in 3 directions. Attaching it to the budget ensures that it would be completed before the end of June. If there's some problem with that, it's going to hold up on its own as its own separate House bill. And I sent a letter out to an email out prior to Jay sending this out Thursday afternoon after I talked with them. So it looks good. This is the final language of the bill after it went through the House and the Senate councils. It references a bill that I knew nothing about that had been passed in 1984. Yeah, the 1984. So this is all the legalese and the other references that are required. But I'll just point out in the language that it allows the district to establish an account so that the revenue generated from any lease agreements could be used by the school committee, by the school district, by a vote of the school committee, to offset the debt service on financing the current project we have or any other capital projects in the future. So it's taken quite a while, but it's moving.
So, just a quick question about the account. So the monies that would come in, say, post 30 years from now, when the building's paid off, would be for renovations, any kind of, it would still have to be building related, or capital
I think it says
project
capital.
related, capital project related. So you can't use, it's not money you can use for the general operating fund or anything like that.
That's, was not our intention.
No, I mean,
If
that's,
so,
I want to make it clear that that would be for future need, right? Okay.
But the Minuteman School Committee in 30 years could work with the legislature if it turns out that there was a different thing.
Sure, I'll come back to that.
I'll bring back light spirit.
We'll be building our space campus at that time.
And just going back to the letter you said about the state's bond bill, it's in paragraph 3, third, adding voltaic energy to our project will help maximize our reimbursement rate. Does that also mean that Minuteman as a high school would be able to draw on photovoltaic energy for powering the school, or is it just?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
So
If we have surplus, well, we don't know what we're gonna, we have to create a minimum of 250 kilowatt system. So, and that would offset our costs initially.
So
And then if
Minuteman
we have
would-
surplus,
sorry.
then we could sell it out depending on
To
the.
Lincoln, for instance.
I wouldn't project who or what we could do at that time because it's a moving target about the whatever source or other energy companies would allow us to do.
Well, from what I'm reading in that paragraph, refers to assist the town of Lincoln in its efforts to actively pursue and utilize alternative energy
Yes.
sources within the town. That's why I mentioned about
Yeah.
Lincoln withdraw from it. The school gets
Yeah,
first
we're-
crack.
The school owns it.
Right.
Where it's totally up to us.
But it's located in Lincoln.
It's located
Oh, I
in
It's
understand.
their benefit
I
that
understand.
we're doing. That's what they're doing.
I don't want to go into a rabbit hole about Lincoln, okay, but the good people in Lincoln, and there are many, that have worked on the Green Energy Committee for many, many years. John Snell is very supportive of us and very supportive of this, and he's going to be helpful as if this continues to have life. So.
Well, let's hope that it does.
And it's anticipated that it would be constructed on the parking lot.
Right. Like a shed type thing.
Like what they have in Lincoln.
We have.
Lincoln Sudbury High
in-
School.
Just like, I hope it looks nicer, but yes.
Alice.
So are you looking for us to write to them and show them?
If you know any of the 8 people that are on the conference committee, it would be helpful.
Okay.
Any other question or comments? Okay, thank you, Ed.
The third item I wanted to update you on is in regards to Liz. As you know, Liz is retiring at the end of this fiscal year. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Liz, and I mean that in every way. She's been great, and she and I have talked about the process going forward. You may or may not realize that Steve Sherrick is also retiring in June. Steve's position was eliminated from next year's budget. So Steve and Liz and Kevin and I and Dave and I met the other day to discuss the process going forward, and this is an outline of the timeline to replace, although I don't think replace is the right word. To have a substitute person. But-
in the process of teaching somebody how to do her job.
We'll have an opportunity to celebrate Liz and Steve in a more fun way before the end of June. So we're having to look at roles and responsibilities in support of the district, which includes the school committee and the superintendent. So we've been looking at the job description, getting input from different stakeholders. We plan on advertising the position this week. Then there'll be a preliminary review in a couple of weeks. Dave has agreed to represent the school committee on my interview committee. And we hope to have someone in place by May 10th. And hopefully they would be on board by the May school committee meeting. But, so it's, I'm not looking forward to it, Liz, but we have to do it. I appreciate your service and your time and your energy.
Thank you. It's very easy when you work with professionals.
Jeff?
Is it possible for the students in the Biotech Academy to clone? Or is
We
that
have a
not
biobot
there
now.
yet?
3D printer.
3D print another one.
So,
Yes, Ford.
I'm a little confused looking at this. Is it anticipated that this would be one position
so all that's budgeted.
for a director of outreach and a district executive assistant? I assume that's to the school committee? Or, I mean, I'd be interested to know what this job description looks like.
Sure. I gave Dave a copy.
I'm extremely concerned that,
Any input?
given the role that Liz has, and given what we're going to need to do over the next 2 or 3 years, the ability of one person to do several jobs, I don't think is possible.
I'll share with the chair the job description, and then input you'd like to give me will be seriously considered.
I share, the gentleman's name, right, what is your name? Ford's concern. I share Ford's concern because I recall when we didn't have a person dedicated to the millions of documents that are involved in the school committee work, and I know that the role that Steve had involved grant writing, and I just think there's an awful lot of work there for one person. Also, the going forward task that this person has to do, if this is an assistant to you, it's a completely different position, and Liz has definitely been a school committee assistant, so you're eliminating the school committee assistant.
We're changing the way that the school committee support is going to be provided. That was the budget that was passed. It's going to change, but all the support will still be provided. When you look at other school districts that are our size, very few, if any, have a person dedicated in the way that we've needed over the last few years. And we have some folks on staff who can take on some of the responsibilities, and we'll move forward as best we can. If we need to make a change, we'll make a change.
Do you plan, could you, I haven't really had a chance to take a good look at, I looked at it to make any suggestions to the role description. Did you want to send it out to other people in the school committee, or how did you want that?
If you would like me to.
I think that would be a good idea. Either send it to you or send it to me, and whatever. I did have a few things that it's premature to talk about. I think the role description would be beneficial, a little more detail about what the support of the school committee would look like.
Sure. Yeah, we can take a look at it.
If it's any consolation
to the anxiety that I'm feeling from everybody. I am putting together a short document outlining some of the major tasks that I've done for the school committee, so whoever comes on board will know, what needs to be done.
I think that's gonna have to also include potential future tasks that are have to take place over the next couple of years that you have not had to do, nor has anybody in the school had to do, that are relate to school committee functions over the next couple of years. I think that has to be taken into account. So I think it's gonna be a different job. It's gonna include what you're doing, but I think there's gonna be additional responsibilities, which I won't go into right now.
Would you, I was going to ask you to cite any now, but when you get a chance to look at the role description, would you be able to include any of those there in that?
I'd be happy to provide that information that I think I have in my head.
Yeah. Jim?
Yeah, and I certainly appreciate the concerns that are coming from other members. I'm personally less concerned, and I think we'll be able to figure it out. That we may wind up picking up some of the pieces, and frankly, I'm glad that we passed a budget that has one fewer head account. I think we get a lot of mileage from that. So I'm just less concerned, although we'll certainly miss you.
Jeff?
There was certainly a time not long ago when it was absolutely essential to have Liz focusing on the school committee. I won't go into any details of the challenging history of this school committee over a few years when the chairman at the time was spending up to 40 hours a week with unnecessary legal and other issues due to member improper behavior. And believe me, at that time, you needed to have somebody like Liz who was completely focused on the school committee and could deal with certain issues. Now, at this particular time, some of those skills are not needed to be exercised in the same way for a year or two. I'm sure we are going to be transitioning to other needs. So this position may have to be rethought. But I think you're gonna, you'll get the description as the superintendent envisions it. You'll have for its concerns. You're gonna have a starting point. But I think you got to keep in your mind that we are different than other districts in the kind of ambition of what we have planned for the next few years. I think that when we start to bring on some possible things we may do around the campus, without going into the details of that, is kind of an unusual thing that we're planning. So you may need additional assistance in the not too distant future, but certainly you can take a starting point as is worked out. But I think we're going to have to be flexible, and I think that, let me put it this way. During a few years, there could be no savings in our budget that would have been greater for us than having Liz part of the school committee. If you said you saved $1 zillion, it would not have covered what she did for us in terms of making the project possible. So what I'm saying is that it could be that there are other goals that we have in which the same thing will occur. That the amount of dollars in the budget to have another person is completely irrelevant next to the benefit of having the person to move forward a very complicated agenda, which is, I think, one of the things that Ford may be concerned about. So we got to keep that in mind, worry less about the money if we enter into one of those situations where we just need the skilled person with the focus. And we might come to that over the next few years as we do some very unusual things in our plans for the campus that may not be similar to what other districts of our size do. That's right. I think that's my point. Thanks.
Well, certainly, as we look at the job description and the person we hire, we want a person who is, I do, and I think other students would, others would feel the same way, is a person who really can do the work of the school committee that we feel we need, that we will lay out. But as people have been saying here too, that the school's needs are changing, and some of the focuses of the school will be different as we move into the new school, into our to the new generation of Minutemen. But certainly we want to I'll use the word safeguard what it is that someone like Liz has done for the school committee and what the school committee needs. But we also need to think of the larger school as a whole too, in reshaping the position and how reshaping the position can meet the needs of the school committee as well as other aspects of what the administration needs. If it doesn't work out the way we hope it will, we have the capability to change that. But I really am interested in hearing from school committee members what they see in the role description for Liz's successor, about what you want for the school committee. And Ed certainly can, I do feel like it does have the best interest, has the interest in the best interest of the school committee in mind as well. It's not throwing us to the wolves, you might say, but Ed,
Not this group. Not this group.
we know a few other groups. We might join you. Yes.
Part of the difference in this school committee that I've seen over the past 10 years is partly the professionalism that Liz brought to this and raised up the level of documentation.
Absolutely.
And organization of what was brought to us for decision-making purposes, but also the culture of the school committee is different from the culture of other school committee organizations, particularly in vocational school committees. This is a very, very, what they would call high-functioning school committee in the vocational schools. And I think a great deal of that has to do with the way it was set up. That Liz was working with the school committee and Ed, but not, and that gave the school committee the ability to be a full participant in making the changes that were needed here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really see that in this. So, I mean, I'm interested to see job description. This does not feel the same way to me.
So I'll send,
Oh, no, I was just gonna ask about the timeline, since what you passed out said that you're hoping to advertise in 2 days.
Yep.
Okay. So you'd be looking for feedback pretty much right away.
as soon as possible. You know, you don't have to have a fully blown job description to advertise a job, because but I'll send that, the draft as it is at the moment, out to everyone and ask you to send your suggestions directly to me and copy Dave.
Okay. Is your hand up again?
No. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Fourth, school building committee report.
As we start out all the time, the project is currently on time and it's on budget. We've completed our foundations. We're in the final phases of the steel erection. The theater height we'll see on Thursday is up, not as high as I thought it would be. So that's up. The buildings are now connected. They met in the middle, and they're connected.
Exactly in the middle.
Exactly in the
They
middle.
actually met.
To the inch. The roof decking is being established. Electrical trenching and drainage is being put in both within and outside the building. Mason subcontractors are on board. As you know, we finally received and we have paid for Lincoln's building permit and also the plumbing and electrical permits. We've paid the fee according to Lincoln's schedule, but under protest with the right to appeal at some future date. It was important for our building schedule and budget to move forward on this part of the process, and we need to continue to do so. Instead of having just a couple of subcontractors on board, we are now starting to have multiple subcontractors on board. We will probably pretty soon, by the time we get through the spring, if we ever have a spring, into the summer, we could have up to 150 workers on the site doing various things. Gilbane, it's very interesting. They have weekly meetings to coordinate the efforts of what's going on out there. Not only the foreman's current weekly schedule that they're doing, but they also deal with subcontractors coming on board in terms of scheduling, i.e. when they're going to do stuff like painting and all that. So it's all very well done. By June 18th, the school building committee is going to hopefully approve a GMP, which is a guaranteed maximum price. Then we will know our price for sure. Within the next couple of school building committee meetings, we are going to be approving the final subcontractors that are coming on board. And this work on the GMP is an ongoing process, including this afternoon. So I think we're going to have good news, but let's just see right now we're on budget and we're on see how that comes out. I now want to show a brief film, which is on the website, done by Black Kettle Films, which was done on March 20. This Thursday at 11, we look forward to seeing you all at the topping off ceremony.
I thought it was 10.
And again,
Isn't it 10? No, 11?
11 a.m., is that correct?
If you want to come a little earlier and sign the beam.
Okay, do so.
All this, where is this?
Now, just so some of you know, or we're looking at this, if you haven't done so, the building project progress reports are there, but this is all our building site. You go to the building project progress reports, and you'll see all the reports that you have received pretty much on a monthly basis, bringing us up to date with where we are. So you can see the progress from when the trees came down to right now when the steel is pretty much up, and that's all there. Then at the bottom, there are two videos, and I want to show you when we hit the lights. The one that was done by Andrew Mudge of Black Kettle Productions, and I'll show it twice just so you, what's this doc thing? No thing. We'll show it to you twice. Let's go through it just one more time.
Anything particular you wanted to spot?
No, just, I think it's the enormity of the project. The accomplishment has been done in just a very short period of time. The roof decking is started. When it gets warmer, they'll be able to pour the floors on. Jacqueline's gonna need what is it, segways or something to get around the building. Have I been asking for it?
Yes.
It's cool,
You know,
so.
it's interesting when you see, for me, when I was saying to Pam, when you see people, workmen on the roof, it gives you an idea of the scale and the size of the building, to be able to see people in the setting, otherwise you don't realize how massive it is.
If you want a tour, we can get you So,
Where should we convene by 11 o'clock, or earlier tomorrow, or Thursday?
and you know,
There'll be signs and people will direct you.
it'll be the main, come into the regular parking lot.
Yeah, you can park out by the project if you
Oh,
want.
park out there, so, all right, okay. But
No.
we're not coming into.
We're
the
doing a
school.
logistics meeting tomorrow at 2.
All right, probably we won't be coming into the building first, this building first.
No,
Okay.
unless you get.
Jeff?
Yes, I only have like 80 questions, so it won't take long. So, question 1,
You get 79 you can ask.
only need 2.
You know, if you watch the Facebook hearings, you usually listen to the senators do all the talking, and then he doesn't have to do anything.
Moving right along.
Permitting done. Is that correct?
Yep.
All the little, everything until, I guess, the occupancy.
Pretty much done, yeah.
So then it can't hold us up anymore with threats or?
Well, but I don't think we want to put any roadblocks up so they do hold us up, so.
But as far as we know, permitting is all done. Number 2.
Well, occupancy is not done.
Occupancy is not done, but as far as building goes, we're done. Second one is, the bids have already been out for the things that we have to purchase, so we're not worried about tariffs or
We
commodity
have
prices.
some, we have some still out coming in and we haven't approved them. But that's gonna happen over the next 2 building committee meetings.
So there could be some issues regarding
If they're
tariffs.
smaller bids, they're not the.
Smaller.
They won't be an issue. Over 80% of our construction budget has been committed.
And the other thing, of course, would be the issuing of bonds and the interest rate we're going to get. And when are the major other bonds going to be floated? What's the time frame?
The time frame for the second of 3 bond sales
Mhm.
is around October, November of this year, excuse me.
And how, out of the 3 groups, which ones are the biggest?
The second one will be about 46 million,
And the first one was,
35 million,
and the last one will be,
about 30.
okay. So there's still a lot of money and the interest rates will be going up, so we have to keep our eye on that a little bit.
The third one will not be issued until such time as we've completed the project, so that we know what the final number will be. So, and that likely will not be issued till around fiscal 21.
Okay, so the one we really have to worry about right now is the October
The
timeframe.
October, yes.
What month are we in now? Oh, okay, thanks. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you for the good news. I think I'm going to send, again, remind town meeting members and people on the listserv that I'm going to take a look at it and see the progress. Because that's
It's all on the website, it's really up to date.
Yeah, I told, they know that, but I'll just remind them it's up to date. I've had people in town come up to me saying they've driven up Mill Street or wherever, just to look over to see, look at the building, they're very impressed by it and excited about
It's
it.
hard to see, because, you know, what's interesting is everybody was, or some people were excited. You really don't see the building, you know, and for Mill Street, you're not gonna really see much. of the
Well, it's the
building.
best they could do, but they saw enough and they said, what is that tall structure going to be? I said, multimedia engineering, and they talked
How
about
can
that.
they even see the tall?
Well, they claim maybe they got out of the car and walked through the woods, I don't know what they saw. Anyway, thank you very much. Kevin? Why don't you sort of lead us through all of these, after we've had a discussion,
Take 5 minutes.
we'll ask for a vote on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item is the acceptance of scholarship funds. In your packet was some information regarding the 2018 Allen J. McLaughlin STEM Scholarship with qualifications. You can find this on page 15. However, There was an amended version that was placed at your table, I'd refer you to that. But the qualifications for the scholarship is become graduate as a senior at Minuteman, enrolled in a STEM-based track, demonstrating excellent academic achievement, and will enter a STEM-based program at a college or university. There's been a slight amendment that I'd like to point out to you that the superintendent was able to work out with Ms. McLaughlin, and that's under the review process section. Item number 3, the original document stated the recipient shall be selected by Allison and Huntington, period. The additional phrase, the amended phrase, is in collaboration with the Minuteman Scholarship Committee and accordance with district policy EPA, which is very agreeable to that, and we're asking the committee to accept with gratitude this scholarship.
I move that we vote to accept the $2,500 to establish the Ellen J. McLaughlin STEM Scholarship as presented in the document dated April 10th, 2018.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Any opposed? Unanimous? Thank you very much. It's very nice of them to do that.
Item B refers to our current legal services contract. We are currently in the 4th year of a 5-year contract. However, it was a 3-year initial contract with 2 one-year options. So we'll be completing the 4th year of that arrangement. On page 30 in your packet, you'll find the hourly rate. If the school committee votes to pick up the 5th-year option and extend Murphy-Lemire Murphy for an additional year, the rate will continue to be $210 an hour as currently being charged. We've met and been satisfied with their work. We did go through a process 4.5 years ago when this contract was up initially, and we maintained Murphy-Lemire Murphy, and it's our recommendation that we continue with them and exercise the option for the 5th year. It's a school committee decision. We're asking you for a vote to extend the contract for 1 more year based on the proposal that's submitted. Alex?
I move that we vote to extend the contract as written in the meeting agenda. Second.
Question? Comment?
Question, is this $210 a blended rate that covers both lawyers and paralegals and they figure at the time, or is this a rate for lawyers and paralegals, or is it not on the schedule, or?
As the invoicing reflects that amount for the lawyers themselves.
Lawyers and paralegals.
If there was some paralegal project, we would
that.
know about it. It's at a
Okay.
much lower rate.
Thanks.
Anything else? All in favor? Any opposed? 8-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Item C regarding audit services. Audit services, as well as legal services, I should point out, is exempt from 30B bid requirements, so that leaves some discretion for the school committee. As you know, we've had, as we saw earlier, the Lansing Heat made their report. They've been here for a number of years. They started in fiscal year 08. Their 3-year contract expires with the audit you received this evening. What we are looking to do is seek some direction from the school committee as to how we proceed. If you would like me to solicit a proposal for an additional 3-year contract from Lansing Heath, I'd be happy to do that. If the committee would like to go in another direction, I'd be happy to do that as well. From an administrative point of view, we've been very satisfied with the firm. They've been very helpful in working us through, particularly this past year where we had some staff transition issues. The nice thing about working with Lansing Heath is the same folks, the same field auditors come out year in and year out, so we don't have to go through that re-education about having people get familiar with our chart of accounts and the way we do business. They're a very competent firm. They're one of the best firms for municipal auditing in New England. But again, the contract is expired, and I'd be happy to move forward as pursuant to the direction of the committee. This contract does fall under the school committee responsibility.
I'd like to move to authorize the award of 3-year continuation contract in line with the fire service. Second.
Discussion, Jim? Jim and then
Yeah, I mean, just in general, in other nonprofit settings, 7 to 9 years is when other boards have been on have felt it's just prudent to move on to a different firm. We recognize that transition can be tough and you've got to retrain people, but I don't have a strong feeling about this particular action at this time, but I think if we were to re-engage them for 3 more years, we should understand we're sort of going beyond what I've seen as normal practices in other places, and sort of keep in mind that we should be ready to make a transition at some point.
Jeff?
The improvement and my confidence of the oversight of the finances of the school took a giant leap when Melton, Heath, and Kevin started to work together. The number of things that they found, especially in the early years, that our previous auditor had let slide, and it was a very large list. Their way that they assisted us in their communications with Kevin in the business office to have us fix these issues over a number of years is one of the cornerstones that took us from what I consider to be not quite up to date oversight to where we could be confident enough to bring forth the kind of project that we brought forth with the building. Before that relationship, I would not have felt confident bringing it forward myself. So I'm very happy with their services. If Cheryl was no longer available with us, then maybe I'd consider moving on, but I'd be very happy to continue with them a little bit longer, at least. Still make me feel confident.
Jennifer?
What is the cost? I mean, what I have in the document is 15, 16, 17. Is it just?
I did not move forward with seeking a proposal at this time.
Okay, so we don't know.
We don't know yet. And
You're just seeking.
I would
$1,000 a year is a little bit of enough.
Yeah, I would say you might see it on the same scale. You're referring to page 37 of the packet, where fiscal 15 is 30,000, fiscal 16, 31, and fiscal 17, 32,000. We may see that same type of increase in the successor contract, but I don't think we're looking at anything substantial.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor? 7 in favor. Any opposed? Abstained? And 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. Item D refers to transfer of inactive accounts. Over the course of the auditors will identify those certain accounts that have been dormant over the last number of years that require a vote of the school committee to recommend transfers to close those. There are 3 transfers that are proposed on page 41 that moves the transfer from the computer tech in the amount of $68,023, from electromechanics $300, and from the drafting club $220 to be transferred to the girls in STEM account. The total of that's $588.23. The second transfer that's being recommended is from the Decker account, $70.04, to the Future Farmers of America account. Again, trying to align these transfers with like activities, if you will. And the third one is more along in the postgraduate program. The old dental assisting program, $6,353.05, be transferred to the postgraduate general account. I asked that the committee vote to.
We no longer have a dental system, correct?
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
Yes, Jim.
The finance subcommittee voted to recommend favorable action.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? Okay, all in favor? 1, 2, 7. There's 7 people in the room, Liz. So it's, any opposed? None, so it's 7-0-0, but there's 7 in the room. Okay, all right, Kevin?
Thank you. Item E refers to the special education increment fee that we charge non-resident students. We periodically review our costs to see that we're capturing the per student cost so we can fairly bill those students that require services that are non-resident students. As you know from member town students receiving special education services, that cost is included in the assessment. On page 43, you'll see a detailed analysis that breaks down our special education costs. In the first group, you'll see the FY17 EOYR, that stands for end of year report. Those are the costs that we reported on our end of year report to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. When we reviewed that and divided it by our total of special education student enrollment, we came up with a total per student cost of $5,282. Then when we projected the fiscal year 18 costs, the same analysis, it came closer to $6,234. We currently charge $4,500. We've been doing that the last number of years. So it's time that we bring this special education increment fee in line with what our actual cost of tracking. The recommendation here is that we base our subsequent year based on a previous year actual. So what we're recommending is setting a 2-year rate so that we can put our out-of-district communities on notice for budgeting purposes what the cost would be. So the vote that's being requested is that the school committee establish a special education increment fee for FY19 to be $5,300 per student and $6,200 per student in fiscal year 20.
Do I hear a motion?
Move
Jim?
by that motion. That we approve the motion as presented. And I just want to comment that
Jennifer seconded.
that the finance subcommittee actually spent some time working with Kevin on this, and we fully support this, and it's going to mean a couple $100,000.
So noted, thank you. Questions, Jennifer?
Is this something we're going to review on a more regular basis? Because it looks like, I mean, your projected is going up another 1,000. Is that, and the population has gone down?
That's correct.
Is that something that, so are we going to look at this in 2 years and do it again, or try to keep current?
It's my intention to do it annually.
Okay.
Now that we've identified a methodology to be able to do it. One of the things, it's included in the regulations where the special education fee can now be applied by regulation. We've been doing it for years. But under the regulation, we need to
justify it.
We need to have a methodology that we do. So it'd be my suggestion that we do this annually to make sure that our costs are tracking with what that our fee is tracking for our costs.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Quick question.
Yes, sure.
Your transportation is blank in FY17.
There were no costs associated specific for students requiring transportation services in their individual education plan. In fiscal 17, we have had those, a couple of students require transportation specifically in 18.
But if they're out of district, their out-of-district town has to provide that, or do we?
We do.
We do, even
If
if
the
they're out-of-district
student attends
students.
here, we provide that transportation, yes. If the student is being in an out-of-district placement, then that would be the sending district, but if the student's a student here.
Okay.
Kevin, homeless students, I know they're not necessarily sped students, the homeless students that were transferred, but that's not in this figure, correct?
That's correct, that's a separate.
Yeah, that's what I thought. We do have, what, one student, right?
I believe we do have.
That we're paying transportation, so the student can get a good education. Okay, any other comment or question? All in favor? Oh, any opposed? 8-0, thank you. Kevin, you have one more?
Actually, three, Mr. Chair, but they'll be all brief.
Pardon me?
I have three to report on, but two of them are not on the agenda, they'll be very brief. But the final thing on the agenda, item F for information purposes, only on page 44, you'll see that the Minuteman Regional Retirement Board is contemplating a cost of living increase for the retirees. These are the non-teaching retirees, the members of the retirement board, up to 3% on a salary base of $13,000. By statute, the retirement board must notify the governing authority of this contemplated action. The retirement board will be taking a vote at their next scheduled meeting at the end of this month.
This is for information only, but does anyone have any questions for Kevin about it? Okay.
Thank you. Just real quickly at your table this evening, you'll find that we received our certified E&D, excess and deficiency. The amount that was certified was $620,746. I'll be bringing this to the Finance Subcommittee to discuss and review at the May 1st meeting. And I would ask that we have it on the school committee agenda in May, because it does require a vote. School committee would need to vote that of this, we included in our revenue plan $540,000 for next year's budget, so we have to make sure the vote's on record. That's just for informational purposes. And just a brief update on where we are with our town meetings and assessments. We've had 3 town meetings. They've all approved the assessments in Lexington, Acton, and Concord. We need 7 of 10 for an approved budget. That's my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Moving on to subcommittee reports. This is strategic planning report. Jim Gamble is representing the committee tonight. The task force tonight.
Thanks. I'm here because, or talking about this because Sue Scheffer, the chair of our strategic planning group, is not here. The other members are Alice Ford, Liz, and Amy Parole from the staff. I'm starting on page 46, which sort of summarizes this. We've met 4 times, as Sue had mentioned at our last meeting here. Our first focus was going to be on preparing materials to welcome new members of the school committee, recognizing that maybe not this year, but next year we will start to have some turnover here. We have produced really like 3 separate things that we're sharing with you. The first, on page 47, is a screenshot from the web, and I think this is sort of a handy page there for all school committee members. Liz and Sue sort of worked on this to bring on one page links to all sorts of documents there. It's wonderful. The second thing was we thought that when a member's term is coming up, that the chair of the committee should send a letter to the appointing authority. And so this is simply drafted for Dave or whoever is going to be chair to use it or lose it. And it's just a draft of a 1-page letter, a copy of the job description that dates back to 2010, and then a 1-pager on page 50 that Alice has worked on that sort of gives the appointing authority a checklist about the qualities that we would seek or that we would welcome. And then on pages 51 54 is a draft of a letter also to come from the chair. Page 51 needs to be completely torn up because Liz is not going to be the key comment.
Yeah, I noticed that.
This is not going to be the key contact person, but it's just a way for the chair to reach out to whoever the new member is and to encourage to bring them fully on board and a part of the group here. And then finally, what we're asking and what we've done for the four of us is that each member of the school committee write a one paragraph bio, and I would recommend that they send it to Alice because she was the one who sort of came up with these prompts and then has been crafting these. And so the bios for the four of us are on pages 55, 5, and 56, just to sort of give you a spirit and the idea that these would be posted on the website. I want to stop soon so that we can sort of get your comments or questions. We are called the strategy planning group. In fact, we're really sort of the scout team. We aren't trying to set policy or make any kinds of decisions, but really sort of go out a couple of years and start to see what are issues that might come up to the school committee in a couple of years, and start just to gather some documents and start thinking so we get something to go with. So when Sue gets back, we're probably going to have some more meetings and keep scouting about different possibilities, topics coming up.
Thank you very much. It's really great work that you've done. What I'd like to ask though is, what would you like from the school committee at this point? If anyone has suggestions for additions, et cetera, would you like to have them send it to you, or just where?
The specific ask is for a bio, and I would recommend, if it's fine with you, Alice, for them to send to you directly or Liz. And then the other thing, the other documents we're really putting in your hand as a chair, and so you can. If people have comments on those, they can share them with Dave as another thing.
I think we're looking at this as a draft, and we want your input, and my recommendation is you give us verbal input and our written input, the committee, and then we're going to come back and we'll redo, based on what we hear. This is a working document. Based on what we hear, we may change depending on, what you come up with. So we're just giving you a first draft.
Okay.
I assume that this could, depending on what we hear from you on, this could be 2 or 3 drafts away from being done.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know.
But I think the key is we're trying to set a standard for the appointing authority to understand what this job is. And I think it's very different from a school committee that I've served on. We only get together roughly 10 times a year, and occasionally on subcommittees, and I think we need to arrive at the table at least with an understanding of what the school's about, an understanding of what your job is, understanding of what Mass General laws are, because you're really on your own when you get here. And I think this, especially now, is a very engaged school committee. I would hope it would be in the future. And I also think over the next, and this is sort of what I was referring to earlier, over the next 2 to 4 years, we're going to have a huge turnover here. Yeah. And I think we need to get, from our point of view, the school committee, down to what we think it probably should be going forward. I think this is a lot of work.
Yes. Yeah.
One of the problems we've always faced is that various towns take us more seriously than others. Various towns have engaged with us more than others. A lot of the memos we've sent, the requests we've sent, often end up in the circular filing cabinet or buried somewhere. So my kind of out-of-the-box suggestion, which has some risks, would be to have 1 or 2 meetings a year in which the member towns send each a representative to meet with the school committee so that we can get to know each other a little bit better. They can put a face with a name, and we can talk about some of these issues, like concerns that they may have about the school that are under our purview, and concerns that we may have, our discussion of how people are selected. Because I'm concerned that if we just have primarily sending documents out, it's not going to make an impact on them. And the other part of it is that people in the member towns are always changing. So we may have one good relationship with the member town, and then somebody leaves, and then nobody knows us there anymore. But if they know they're going to meet with the school committee once or twice a year, then we can perhaps have an ongoing relationship, and some of the issues that have bedeviled us in the past may be nipped in the bud. So that would be my suggestion, as opposed to just having these documents, which are fine. I wrote some of them many years ago, along with other people here, but I don't think that the documents are going to be sufficient to have what we want to have happen.
Now, I think that's a good idea. I also think that these documents shouldn't be just sent out. I think that the school chair or the person who's retiring from the school committee should have a face-to-face meeting with the appointing authority. So I don't think it should be just put in the mail. I think it should be a the school committee should play a very active role. Now, it's up to the appointing authority to appoint whoever they darn well please, but at least they'll get the point that this is a very serious body that's taking this seriously, and we would hope that the appointment, which is going to be a very difficult appointment for that person, in my opinion, if they really pay attention to this and listen to the chair of the school committee or whoever meets with them, this is a serious position, and it needs to be treated as such. So I think a face-to-face meeting is extremely important.
Not all outgoing members may feel comfortable doing that or have the kind of relationship like that happens. That's why perhaps a larger meeting may be less scary.
Well, they're both good suggestions. We will keep in mind. We'll consider them, keep in mind. Thank you. Anything else? So if you have, would your hand up? Comments or suggestions is to send. I'm sorry, I forgot to send to Liz. Okay.
Well, the bios for Liz. Any comments and suggestions?
I thought there's a lot of good stuff here. Not that I think there's some bad stuff. It's really good stuff. And I must say, the resource of the school committee members, having that all on one site, that was just wonderful.
I think it's a bit overwhelming, quite frankly.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's still, I went through them, I clicked on all of them, and I had to finally stop reading all every last word of it. But having it in one place is so useful.
It was a lot of fun going through it.
So thank you to the committee very, very much. And when would you like people to get suggestions back to you, would you say?
Tomorrow.
In the next week or so, we don't have another meeting, I don't think.
I don't think so, no.
Planned, but we're going to have to. And I think we'd like to wrap this up before we go on to the next subject.
Okay. I think you're certainly
On
very.
that, could I ask,
Yeah.
do you have a timeline for when you want the bios?
Yeah. Within the next 10 days.
And if you just want to answer the prompt questions, that's fine.
Very good.
What we're trying, the bios, the important thing about the bios is again, so the appointing authority, the person can see the type of people that are working. So hopefully you're going to match it.
Yeah. Do we have anyone going on the board, off the board at the end of this year?
There were three that all said they want to
They re-up.
continue.
Yeah. Okay. So my thanks for all of you, really nice work. Okay, Alice.
The policies, so this is actually quicker than it looks. So it's on page 57. We have 4 policies in front of us, but I want to go through these other pages that have been provided first. So, if you look at page 58,
Liz has put together a nice table for us of all the policies that we worked on in the past few years. And it's a pretty large selection of them, if you think about it. And many of you have been involved in the last couple of pages, but if you go back a little bit, you weren't all here, but in 2009 to 2012 approximately, we revised the entire policy manual, which was mostly from before ed reform. So when we got it in 2009, it was really from the 80s. So
Not this ed reform.
No.
Massachusetts.
1993 was ed reform.
No.
So 1993 is when ed reform occurred, and most of the Minuteman policies at that time were from before ed reform.
70s.
Yeah, they were, it was amazing. So Ed hired a consultant from MASC, and we did a lot of work, and you'll all recall that. And then, in the ensuing years, we updated a number of other policies and adopted some that were kind of required because of changes in the law. So, the ones obviously on page 58 are ones you've seen recently. If you look at section D, finance, this was kind of like your taxes, you don't really want to do them, and then the deadlines come up. We actually had to redo all of the finance policies. So Kevin worked with the auditor and the finance subcommittee, and this went on for quite a long time. And the last approval date for these was in July of 2017, so it missed the June 30th cutoff for this audit. You probably noticed in the audit that they mentioned there were no new policies in this section, but in fact, that was because the second reading was on July 11th, which is 11 days later than the audit. So, anyway, we did all of these. Then, page 60, these ones you've all been involved in, and you remember reading those and working on those. And now we are faced on page 61 with 4 that MASC sends you all in the mail. Did you ever get a mailing from MASC with a bunch of policies in March or something? Okay, so that's the ones we're looking at. So the next page is actually the flyer that you received. And if you go on the website at MASC, you can actually go in and look at all of the policies that they have from other school districts. They're largely the same. Exactly the same in most cases. So the meal charging policy, which we're going to do right now, that is required by the USDA. The alcohol, tobacco, and drug use by students prohibited is something that they've done late. It's a DESI thing, and they were waiting to do it, and we're now ready. Online fundraising solicitations. Anybody been asked to donate to an online fundraising site for some cause?
Yeah.
A lot of people have. So this is dealing with that, and the Ethics Commission has been involved with MASC in that one, and the student submission to educational surveys and research is related to another one in here, and we'll get to that in a minute, but we have to comply with the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment. So the first one is meal charge policy. And if you turn to page 2 of meal charge policy, you can see 2 underlined sentences which were added by the food services people at the school district. Everything else is the same as what MASC was recommending. Those 2 sentences are added or suggested additions. And I actually wanted to bring those to your attention. I don't necessarily agree with the first one personally, so that's a personal.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, so I don't know if maybe Ed, you want to address the first one, the CLS, whether or not that.
I didn't speak with Heather about it. Did you speak with Heather about it?
Not specifically, but I do know that that's something that we typically do just because of the cost of processing these things.
I don't think it's a big deal one way or the other. But.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's necessary to put it into the policy.
To be honest with you, I would remove it completely. I mean, you could get someone make an issue out of not giving them their money back, you know.
Yeah, I feel that way.
I agree.
And, question for Kevin, sort of similar along that line. I mean, is there an internal process for writing off on bad debts here?
Yes, we can do that, yes.
I asked somebody, and I think, I don't remember who it was, it was like there's 17 kids or something, typically at the end of the year that I have less than $350 in the account. Like that.
How many else?
17.
Surprised me again, I don't think it's a major issue.
Yeah.
All right, so let's
So,
take that out.
does someone want to amend that?
I'll move to amend it by striking the underlined accounts with 350 or less will not be given back.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, anybody want to comment on that amendment?
I do have a question just on,
Let's, Madam.
well, on that part of it. So, is there a policy for what happens to unclaimed funds? I mean, is that part of this policy?
Unclaimed funds.
Well, if somebody has a, I mean, 350
Surplus.
you know, so if somebody doesn't ask for a refund, it specifically says you require a
I
written
think it
request.
just carries over.
I think it does carry over, I can look into it, I thought we would just release it.
You can tell from experience.
No. They send it back to you?
No, it stays in the account.
We issue checks to some of them.
Yeah, but the account, so 2 years after graduation, the account still stays active. And you have to ask in writing to transfer it or refund it. But it's still there, it's just inactive.
10 years after graduation, it's just still there.
Yeah. So unless it's asked
Okay.
for, it stays an active account, but it's inactive being used. But if they know their PIN number, or somebody knows a PIN number, they'll deduct from the account. So they don't track it at that level, you have to ask for it.
But the students know what their account is at the end of the year.
They have access to it on the web portal.
Okay.
The kids,
And they,
at least the kids that are eating,
And
they
they
know how
typically
much
don't.
is in the account.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend to strike that sentence and a second. Any other discussion on that motion to amend? All in favor of the motion to amend? It's like unanimous.
Unanimous.
Okay, so the other sentence is graduating seniors must be sent up in the graduation paperwork that would services clearing with any negative debt or they may lose. I don't have any issue with that personally. Does that work for you?
Yeah, it says may.
Yeah, may. So, does anyone else have a concern about any other sentence in this policy?
Well, I guess I have a little trouble with that one, about the main uses ability to certain graduation. What kind of related activities?
It would be up to the principal and the superintendent to determine if they owe the district several $100s or more. We've never seen it happen, but you may have heard some of these school districts that have been struggling with this issue in regards to their ability to maintain a constant flow of federal support funds for these programs. So it's,
They can't withhold the diploma.
no, you can't withhold the diploma.
It'll be more like
It's more like things like the senior trip.
senior trip, or how could they afford to go on a senior trip at $60 if they can't pay a $5 meal?
Okay, I'll leave, I knew that you couldn't withhold the diploma, I know you can't do that, that wasn't, I didn't infer that a year ago. But, other people feel comfortable?
Any other concerns with this policy? Anybody want to move to accept this for first reading?
I'll move.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor of the policy, EFD as written? As amended, sorry, thank you, unanimous. Next one,
Thank you,
JICH, drug and alcohol use by students. So this one pertains to controlled substances as defined in chapter 94C. This one include but not limited to. I received no questions about this, did you see any questions? No.
The
Anybody?
new one's on 69.
Yeah. I mean, So 94C, that's a federal law, right? And this is, that
Oh, okay, sorry, guys. If you, this is page 66, so 69 is the one that, it's, yeah, go ahead.
so, I mean, I interpret controlled substances as being defined by the feds, basically. And there are five different schedules there, and I think that's the state of the art term. I didn't take time to cross-reference this to JLCE, which is the administration of a medication, but controlled substance are medications that are commonly used for ADHD. So we may want to consider some kind of amendment that makes it clear that we're only talking about controlled substances that are not present on the school in accordance
You
with.
just say any
policy.
illegal controlled substance.
Well, it's, I mean, I assume without, when, I'm sorry, I didn't take a look at the administration, but I'm sure we have, that policy sort of goes into, how the nurse and the student sort of work in terms of bringing medications on campus. And so we're just talking about substances that are beyond that are not in compliance there. But I mean, just to sort of note that controlled substances include alcohol, for instance. And so we just have to deal with that.
Non-prescribed, maybe? Non-prescribed control?
I mean, we don't want kids who have a prescription bringing in their spare.
We have another
tablets.
policy on that.
Right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So we just want to cross-reference it, just to make sure that
We could look into that and approve this as a first reading.
yeah, exactly.
Or prohibited controlled substance, go ahead, all right, we'll take
Well,
one.
you don't want them bringing in alcohol, selling it, you don't
Exactly.
want them vaping. I don't know if you've been listening to us.
Oh, we've been listening to it from a fairly intimate perspective.
Okay. And then the other comment is, going from the old to this new one, that the old one sort of mentioned, or had this mention that we may notify law enforcement, and there's no mention of that here. And I think that's fine, but I just was curious what the thinking was behind that.
That's more of a procedural issue, which is covered in the handbook.
Okay.
How we notify, or our opportunity or leeway to notify the police in certain cases. Starsky was.
I don't think the police want to be bothered with the vapor e-cigarettes as much as they might be calling for marijuana or other things like that.
Can someone talk a little more about the screening tool?
It's a-
By the education, what it is, and also when it's administered, if it all given like on money, like just talk a little bit about it.
The way we interpret that is that it's an assessment that's done on students as they come into the school. We have Amy has implemented, I would say, a pretty effective cadre of screening tools to help us determine who is at risk, from everything to drug abuse to physical abuse to suicide. And so we've been implementing these screening tools for a number of years, and I think that's how I interpret
I
that.
think it's a survey.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, the way it reads right here, though, a normal person might think you can screen kids for drugs and alcohol.
Well, that's what I thought, that's what I
Like
thought it
testing.
was.
Right.
That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, no, it's not that.
It's a verbal screening tool.
Right. Yeah, it's like a survey that the nurses do with the kids to find out.
Eating disorders, things like that.
They ask them a series of questions.
Suicide.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, the intent is a little different than the way you're describing
I
it.
wish it was the latter of the two.
I'm sorry?
I wish it was the actual screening, because that would be better.
Well, I understand a little better the purpose of it, the way you describe it. I guess I sort of missed the
Is it today you read these? Yeah, she's been.
This one's super clear to me. It says verbal screening tool to screen students for substance abuse disorders. If you just remove Jesse from that sentence, which always clutters everything. And I meant that as a metaphor. So,
Well,
there it is.
yeah, I'm certainly not going to
We need.
it's just, I know in Lexington High School, other high schools with it too, they screen or they surveys the kids to get an idea of what's going on. I didn't quite get that, but if that's the purpose, it's quite all right. I'll leave it alone. Just didn't jump out at me. Any other comment from anybody? So this is just the first reading because we're on the controlled substance.
Yeah, do we have a motion to approve this? Second, any
No.
Second, okay, so JICH, and we're going to find a cross-reference. Maybe Jim, you could send the cross-reference that you had in mind to Liz.
Okay.
Any more comments on this little guy? All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, GBEBD, online funding and solicitation crowdfunding. I didn't receive any comments about this one.
My only comment is that it mentioned principals and the principal of each school.
Oh, where is that?
The JBE, yeah, so the second paragraph.
Scratch the plural one.
Yeah.
And the principal of each school, so that's not really relevant to us yet unless you intend to run the old school and new school simultaneously.
Yep, and scratch of each.
Arlington would like us to do that.
So,
It's in paragraph 2,
Second line.
both references to principal.
There are two places, principals and then the principal of each school.
Of each school.
But this should be the principal. So the second one is principal.
So, I read this as a, as a really strong statement for the superintendent to basically curb this as much as possible. And if that's the intention, I think that's great. I think that's the way to go. If we're not supplying our classrooms, that should come from the budget process. I also sort of note we have these two organizations that are not part of the school committee, the parent teachers, the nice person from Needham, and the Minuteman Futures Foundation. And if we really need to bring in money through a charitable means, those are the two vehicles that we could possibly have direct staff in school to, rather than running a bunch of these things.
Yes.
Yeah, I sort of felt that way too, about doing crowdfunding, and that I hope it is strong, the intent, the superintendent, the principal, but that wouldn't be one of my favorite ways of raising money for the school.
I just point out that this is a heavily procedural policy for MISC, which is always harping about whether it's policy or procedure. So this one is like completely procedural in my opinion, but it seems to be a hot issue, so I guess we all probably go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay, right.
I move we accept this for first reading with the amendments to the.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor of GBEBD with the two edits? It's unanimous. Item D. So this is student submission to educational surveys and research. You'll notice that when we just talked about, there was a verbal screening tool, which is sort of an educational survey and research. We have to review this one too. I didn't receive any comments about this one either. Anybody else?
I thought this
Anybody have any remarks on IID? We have exhausted our ability to focus on policy.
I move we accept the policy for
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Anybody else have a comment on it? Seeing none, all in favor of IID as written?
first reading. It's unanimous, and John, thank you.
Jim, did you vote on this one? The last, I didn't see, I'm sorry, Darcy. Alice, thank you. A lot of hard work, good work.
Liz?
Thank you, Liz, a lot of hard work between the two of you.
They're a little screwy.
I renumbered them once I got to 41, but I just really was talking about.
It's typical of short timers.
Check it out. The way that this presentation on the policies and the history of it was organized, it was very helpful. So thank you, Alice, and thank you, Liz. All right. Secretary's report.
Okay, the minutes from the previous meeting, start on page 72, and I, not having heard of any changes, I'd like to move to approve the draft minutes of the February 6, 2018 meeting as presented.
Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Pam. Okay. Now, we move to open executive session, and there will be, Ed, do you have anything, do we need the executive session?
I have nothing under
All
A.
right, so we will not,
You can focus on B and C.
yeah, we'll focus on B and C. And
You get to go home.
And the people that we need present for B and C would be just Liz.
Yep.
Okay.
Not to return to open session.
Not return to open session. I'll read the motion. I guess I don't have to read the motion for A or C, we're not going to hold it. Okay. I move that the students